Coast Guard cutter Point Reyes, based in Campbell River, responded to over 5,000 search and rescue incidents during her career. Only a small fraction of these were fires, but fires were always of great concern because of the possibility that we might be dealing with people trapped below decks. Beyond the potential for saving life, fires were also fought to minimize property damage and protect the environment. We only have one video of fighting a real fire. This occurred in August 2006 when a gill knitter northbound from Campbell River caught fire. Unable to extinguish the fire themselves, the crew abandoned ship into a passing water taxi. By the time the Point Reyes arrived on scene, the fire had been burning for about an hour. The video shows how we were able to safely attack a fairly major fire. First, our fire monitor, powered by a 45 horsepower pump, is used to knock down the fire from upwind at a safe distance. This initial standoff distance is important, as vessels may contain gasoline, diesel, propane, scuba bottles, distress flares, ammunition, paints and varnishes, welding bottles, or oxygen for medical emergencies. Not only can these flare up without warning, but they can also explode, throwing burning debris. Once, when our Zodiac was towing a burning vessel off a fuel dock using a long tow line with chain and grapple on the end, there was an explosion aboard that caused a burning piece to land in the Zodiac. We had a burnt hole in the seat upholstery for the summer as a reminder of what can happen. As you can see, the crew are dressed in complete fire turnout gear, including self-contained breathing apparatus. They are also wearing inflatable life jackets. Once the fire is knocked down, we switch to foam, which appears much like dishwashing soap when stirred up in the sink. Foam has a number of advantages. First, it significantly cuts down on the amount of water you would otherwise have to pump into the vessel to fully extinguish the fires that can be seated deep in the fiberglass. Too much water might reduce the vessel's stability enough so that it capsizes, or even sink it outright. The foam also gets into voids and compartments that are hard to attack without getting aboard the vessel. Finally, the foam will stay in place, creating a barrier between hot spots and oxygen in the air. The occasional hissing noise you hear is from the air controls as the cutter is maneuvered. After about half an hour, we had the fire completely knocked down. The vessel was floating fairly high, almost on its waterline, but port forward, where the wind had concentrated the flames, was burnt almost to the waterline. At this point, we were hoping to dewater the vessel so we could get it to shore where the remaining fuel could be pumped out. We went alongside and used our 45 horsepower pump again, this time with a non-clogging Venturi pump attached to remove water. Things were progressing well until a large yacht, passing close at speed, threw enough wake to bang the gill knitter around. Something was observed to break free below the waterline, and suddenly water started to pour in, so we had to release the vessel and let it sink. Despite the poor outcome of our only video, over the years we managed to get a number of still photos of other fires, many of which we fought successfully. The Saner Fisher Lassie II caught fire off Campbell River in 1989. The fire looks quite bad, and in fact the wheelhouse was completely destroyed. However, Point Reyes put the fire out and the vessel was back fishing 3 months later. In July 1992, the 52-foot yacht Arctic Grail caught fire off Middle Natch Island, just south of Campbell River. The owner attempted to put the fire out with an onboard halon system, but it failed to function. Point Reyes arrived 25 minutes after the original Mayday and put the fire out. The vessel was restored. The Raven Spirit, a 47-foot trawler, was northbound near Kelsey Bay in June '92 when a galley fire occurred while the crew was preparing breakfast. They attempted to fight the fire with portable extinguishers, but were then forced to abandon ship. Point Race arrived about an hour and a half after the fire started. The wheelhouse was gone by this time, and the diesel-soaked fiberglass proved difficult to extinguish. Point Race knocked down the fire, but had to continue cooling hot spots while towing the vessel to Campbell River. On arrival, approximately 600 of the original 1,200 gallons of fuel on board were pumped off. It's believed that most of the remainder burned off during the fire. Our most photogenic incident was the Western Producer Fire in Discovery Harbor Marina in November 2004. The ex-seiner was under a temporary shelter as it was being converted when it caught fire. Our Zodiac had to move a number of other boats so they didn't catch fire. Then Point Race and the fire department extinguished the fire. Point Race also attended a number of shore fires. In June 1990, the Bliss Landing fuel station caught fire after a spark from a pump. The fire was extinguished by the Point Race and Mallard, and the station was returned to service. Parts of a brush fire at Copper Bluffs in 1993 proved difficult for helicopters to extinguish as they were in undercuts. Point Race was able to attack them from the waterside. In 1996, when one of the net lofts at Quathiaski Cove caught fire, Point Race was again able to attack from the water side, doing boundary cooling so that the second loft was saved. Along with brush fires, Point Race also fought a number of waterfront cabin fires and wharf fires in our operational area. Again, fighting fires was only a small percentage of our responses, and with the crew normally busy during a call, the weather poor, or during night operations, we were unable to photograph many of our incidents. However, we did get some, and other people have also kindly provided us with some photos. Here are a few shots of some of the other types of incidents we attended. Point Race served Campbell River from July 1982 to June 2011. The cutter responded to calls as far as Alert Bay and Knights Inlet to the northwest, to the head of Butte Inlet to the north, and as far southeast as Lasqueti Island. There are about 400 miles of navigable channels in the area, with currents of 10 to 15 knots over half a dozen narrows and passes. And of course the rip at Cape Mudge, where up to 7 knots of current can meet southeast seas built up over a 50-mile fetch, creating vicious short seas of up to 5 meters in height. Video of heavy weather seldom shows its true magnitude. However, this video of a tug slightly larger than Point Race, attempting the rip, then turning about and running back to shelter, captures the conditions that can be encountered off Cape Mudge.